At a time when I was trying to simplify how I was running my business, I found that I could do a pretty good job of tracking what I needed to do for my clients or even internal projects. But I kept running into the problem of regular responsibilities falling through the cracks. So I worked on a strategy that leveraged the best of these tools to give a really simplistic dashboard, like the simplest method ever for tracking what needs to be done, as well as tracking information about how it should be done. So I've got a dashboard for you today, and it is all about how you can track your routines and have a database for routine documentation or routine SOPs, standard operating procedures, to give visibility into what you have to do for the year, every quarter, and then every week per month breakdown. Let's get into it. I wanted a simpler way to manage all of the reoccurring and like administrative operational tasks inside of the business. Essentially, anything that was internal and not necessarily client facing or about a deliverable. So, since I was doing a lot of my company SOPs and documentation inside of Coda, I thought through a way to manage that stuff in Coda directly and ended up coming up with this operations dashboard. So, I'll show you what mine looks like, and then I'll take you over to the templates I've created for both Coda and Notion. This dashboard came out of rethinking how I was trying to manage tasks directly inside of Coda in a way that just removed overwhelm and stress and made it super simple for me to sign on and see what needed to get done about where I was, where my team was in the execution, and then just kind of move the needle forward. I have a dashboard here, and this is designed to be able to fit multiple years. I'm leveraging Coda's floating table of contents to make it easy to navigate. So I can jump from, Q1 of a specific year to Q4 of the prior year just by using that floating navigation on the side. And I'm also leveraging toggle headers because there will come a point in any year, where things are moving along and you don't necessarily need to look at information from the prior month or information from the prior quarter. So we can just use the toggles to unfurl and collapse that information whenever it's relevant. You'll notice that my checklist items actually have links. Even though we've checked something, there's no strike through, at least in Coda. And that's because this link here actually links to my SOP. So a great example would be, clicking on that link, then any team member who has access to this dashboard can immediately see what the documented procedure or routine is made up of. And again, in the theme of keeping it simple, I just called them routines because it was a pretty small team and we had a rhythm regarding when we wanted to execute on these tasks, so to speak. So it's more dynamic than just having a checklist item, because a checklist item doesn't necessarily give context about what's relevant information, how to do something, or what expectations are. When you merge the two, then you can get some really powerful opportunities to level up your team, giving them the information they need in context, but without the complexity of a robust task management workflow. So a team member clicks on that routine page, and in Coda, it pops up, at the center of the screen, and they can see what frequency it happens. I group all of my internal tasks by a certain type of task. So that's why you see type here. And the options are accounting or marketing, admin or general technology. And if there is a assignee or a SOP owner, for sake of simplicity, we make it the same thing here. Then you can indicate who on the team is going to own this checklist item here alongside the description or alongside the documentation of how to do it. In this case, a stand up is everybody on the team. So, not necessarily, it doesn't require an assignee, but we could add one there for the person who owns documentation. To recap just the highlights here, we've got multiple columns in the document that make it so that we can lay out all of the weeks within a month. And then as we have to add individual items, they don't have to be linked to a routine. You can add those checklist items and give that full dashboard and visibility into the month in one place. We're using toggle headings so that you can collapse the months as they're completed. And in Coda specifically, I've left the 00 month template so that I can easily just copy it and create another one as I'm like moving along in the month. In theory, you may want to create all 3 months right at the beginning of the quarter. Or if you are building it out for the year, you may want to build out Q1 through Q4. But in practice, I tend to switch it up a bit. And so it helps me to not move or not to build this out any more than 1 quarter at a time. And if ever I get to a point where I say I'm going to change the whole routine, we're going to drag and drop and move things around, and it's going to look completely different, then I can always just copy the most recent month itself and change it. So for sake of order, we're going to get rid of those two. When it's time for me to like move in or, get started on that month, then all I have to do is to change the numbers. So the month number, and then I've got the short for February here. Uh, this makes it easy to navigate and jump through them. So that's what it looked like for me in practice. Let's take a look at the template, shall we? So if you download the business operations dashboard template, for sake of modeling what it would look like, I've gone ahead and thrown in 2024, but this is pretty flexible. You can use it next year or any year for that matter. The top of the year is your header one, and then any routines or any tasks that happen, at the beginning of the year, but only, or not necessarily at the beginning of the year, but anything that happens once a year, we would place there at the top. Next, we can break down each of the upcoming quarters. So we've got the toggle here for Q3, and these are some of the quarterly routines that will need to happen this quarter. I've also included something that you didn't see just now, but is a part of this system, which is if you have something that you want to bring to the top, visibility, maybe into an upcoming major event, yes, you'll probably put that checklist item in the respective week column, but using the call out can actually make it so that your team has that in mind right at the top of the month. And of course, you can change the icon here if it's related to vacation or if it's related to, just a major announcement, maybe a new hire or, someone's going on parental leave. And then for the template, for ease of navigation as well, I've included the dividers so that visually it's easy to see where each month ends and the next one begins. For Coda, the recommendation I have is that you leave this bottom template alone so that when it's time to copy and create a new month, you can copy it and paste it right where it needs to go. And it's always there for you. So you can just kind of edit it and keep things pushing when you're in the middle of running your business. What makes this whole system shine, of course, is the fact that the routines, your documentation of your routines, is directly linked into your checkboxes. So we're going to take a look at the routines table, just a quick overview of how that works. In practice, you'll probably have the description hidden, and it'll be something that people see whenever they click into a page. So let's make that switch now. There we go. But I do like seeing the column because you can see which pages are empty and which pages have some text in them. So this allows you to name the routine, again, to give an assignee, to indicate how frequently someone might do the routine. And you can always change this drop down to match your business model, the team members that you're on. Maybe instead of type of SOP, it could be the team that executes the SOP, whatever works. To make it easy for you, we've got a button that helps you add a new routine. It could be record a video. And then, of course, you can fill in the description within the page. This might be a marketing task. We'll show that there. By default, the person who will be listed as the assignee will be the person who creates the record, but you can always make a change there. And to make it easy for you to move in, we've got a button for you to clear the existing data. I do love that about Coda. Okay,
So we've taken that super simple system and brought it back over into Notion. There are some key differences between the two platforms that I'll kind of voice over, although the function is the same. So inside of Notion, the table of contents doesn't float. It exists at the top of the page. And keep in mind that if you use toggle headers, you only see the highest level toggle header. Notion's table of contents doesn't show you nested toggles. Here, again, we're modeling almost the exact same tasks inside of Notion. I've included a color header for the year in case you do end up using multiple years. That can help you visually to separate them. Again, we can create checklist items and link directly to the SOP pages so that when it's time for a team member to complete the task, they can open up that record. When you are in your Notion workspace, you can actually decide whether or not you want those links to pop up on the side, or if you're using the desktop app, if it'll open in a new tab. That's what I would recommend. And then, of course, you can check and uncheck those checklist items as needed. Plus, one thing I really like about Notion is the ability to use a button. So I've included a button for you to add the quarter, and it will add a new quarter and the first month of routines. This is, of course, because we want you to have that flexibility in customizing how it works. So just keep in mind that if you do need to make changes to the template or to your kind of default quarterly checklist items, then you'll need to edit the button itself. So that's a bit of a difference between Notion and Coda here. At its core, though, we still have our routines database, but in Notion, it's a dedicated wiki. So we can look at this here and see that the table is almost identical, where we've got the name, and then you can assign an owner. Again, the owner of a process in this model is also the person who's responsible for maintaining the documentation of that process. A frequency dropdown to indicate how frequent your team should expect that this will be executed or that they'll be responsible for executing it. And those tags for general categories, but you can diversify that as needed to fit your business model. Added benefit of Notion is the verification column where you can set an expiration date and an expectation that team members are reviewing a specific routine or the documentation of that routine at a regular interval and it will expire. So I really like that about Notion wikis, and that's why the routines database in Notion is actually a wiki and not just a regular database of pages.
Personally, I think that robust task management apps do a really good job of handling routines, but database apps, not so much. This approach gives you the best of both worlds, where you can still get the simplicity of a checklist, but you can also empower your team to know what to do and how to do it. I hope this dashboard inspires you to think outside the box a little bit and to think about how to present the information that you need to run your business to yourself and to everybody else in the most simple of ways. Of course, if it turns out that this checklist just isn't robust enough, then by all means, level up. Look into using a database for tracking your tasks.